Hey, we're getting new consoles! Already! Aren't you frustrated? But seriously, I'm not really going to go in on the PlayStation 4 Neo and the Xbox 1.5 revisions because that's been talked about to death. I might actually talk about that stuff later on, but actually, I think Nintendo needs to be the forefront of this conversation because the new console offering that they have is actually a new console entirely. And my love-hate relationship for Nintendo really needs to come out on this one. It's going to do you some good. Also, if you're a Nintendo fanboy or fangirl, you might want to click away. There's going to be some uncomfortable truths up in here.
So I've had some time to sit and think about this new wave of consoles looking to release in the next year or so, as if we didn't just get new consoles 2 or 3 years ago. That fact aside, and knowing there's a glaring dichotomy on if the industry really needs new revisions of current consoles, because screw you early adopters, I wanted to really focus on Nintendo. Mainly because the codenamed NX isn't a revision at all, but rather a completely new console entirely. I've had a massive love-hate relationship with Nintendo over the years, which prompted a lovely rant from yours truly on Twitter the other day, and about how Nintendo could become the successful console maker they used to be. That's what you get for letting me have a vacation, corporate America. So, let's talk, Nintendo. You need an intervention. Firstly, hardware. Some will defend Nintendo, and Microsoft this generation, to the final blow that hardware and graphics aren't everything, and I tend to concur to a certain degree. Nintendo's problem, however, has been that it doesn't see the need to even be close. From the weak excuses of the Wii not having HD capability because who the hell even owns an HD TV anyway?
Our games are not high definition, and again, our thinking is high definition penetration at this point is about 15% of households. It's not something that we believe the mass market is really going after. Our focus with a mass market game was to have a mass market price and a mass market collection of software.
And it's as if you taped two Wiis together. That's powerful, right? Nintendo seems to struggle with the idea of having a little bit of foresight in regards to deliberately reading the direction of the industry at a technical level. Sure, marching to your own tune is always encouraged, but it also implies that you do so at your own risk. Sure, the Wii absolutely killed it in the market last generation because it targeted a certain market, whilst leaving the hardcore fan base scratching their heads. The mass market ate it up as intended and it worked out for Nintendo, but the ship sailed at the end of the cycle and Nintendo couldn't bring it back. So to that point, Nintendo really needs to focus on at the very minimum, providing hardware that is on par with the competition. But legacy, Nintendo doesn't need to. Graphics aren't everything. Okay, that's the hill you want to die on. I gotcha. And I hear and read that a lot, but here's where releasing a console with innards compared to the other machines can only help Nintendo. Go ahead, tell me, what kind of third-party support does the Wii U have right now? Go ahead, I'll wait. And sure, Nintendo had a huge third-party offering with the Wii, but the Wii was a console that was more comparable with its competition, and even then, ports for games like Call of Duty looked and played really rough. Even worse for the Wii U, and here's where we reach our current conundrum. When a new game is announced, I've witnessed Wii U owners go through the cycle of, hey, is it coming to the Wii U? And, no Wii U version? Third parties quickly dropped support of the console when it was realized that its capabilities couldn't stand up to the other stronger machines, which ruled out a lot of porting possibilities. Games that are taking full advantage of things like 8 gigabytes of memory versus 2 gigabytes that the Wii U utilized, it just wasn't logical at that point. So at the very least, in an effort to stand with the competition, keep a third-party stream of software and maybe just please a lot more folks that want to buy your product. And yes, with prettier graphics, nobody loses here. Secondly, you gotta get with the times. Nintendo doesn't seem to want to attempt to adhere with the current trends that are making waves in gaming communities. Stream your games online so viewers can enjoy your session too? Who does that? Share or capture a photo of a cool thing you found in a game? Take a picture of your TV. You have a smartphone, don't you? We know Nintendo, the hardware probably can't support it. Why not just say it that way? Don't even get me started on live streaming. Nintendo has such a death grip on their intellectual property that it's cut your nose off despite your face level of ridiculous. They treat their brand like an overprotective parent sheltering their child from the ways of the world. Want to showcase their IP on YouTube? Nope. Want to stream their IP on Twitch or other platforms? Nah, son. At least not unless you want to jump through hoops. Flaming hoops of why do I even bother? But Legacy, it's their intellectual property. They're legally able to protect it, so yeah. You're damn right it is, and as they should. But they do it so much so that it suffocates the potential of the IP and its exposure. Who cares if some big-named YouTuber is making ad revenue while simultaneously exposing your property to one of the biggest go-tos of information? My 6-year-old daughter begged me for Splatoon, and I couldn't figure out how she even knew about it. She found it on YouTube. If there's anything you want to know about a certain game, where do you go? Come on now, you know it's YouTube. But to their credit, I would even go further to say that Nintendo is ahead of the curve in some aspects. This may come as a surprise coming from me, but I believe off-TV play is the most next-gen feature in this current console cycle. I'm really impressed by it, and it's certainly something they should carry over the next console, and in its entirety, and even improve upon it. Speaking of improvement, Nintendo needs to almost completely scrap the current way they handle their online transactions, online play, and online interactions. Hell, just completely redo anything they do online. And I completely get why they've approached things the way they have, but looking at how Sony and Microsoft have their online interactions set up, Nintendo's way of doing things is frustratingly limited. All to try and keep a strong control from seeing their online communities become toxic, and I really can't blame them. Spending an afternoon on Xbox Live or PlayStation Network, getting called all manner of names, informed about all the wonderful sexual acts being performed on my mother, and witnessing various levels of homophobia from dudes of all ages. But if Nintendo were to put a great system into place to attempt at preventing these things rather than locking them down tight from the start, you might see more people migrating over to that platform. Police it. Don't rule it with an iron fist. Heaven forbid parents of the kids that talk all that jazz online actually do their jobs and, parent. And thirdly, first-party titles. I've had an uncomfortable amount of die-hard Nintendo fans tell me that all Ninty needs is their first-party titles. Seriously, what? Don't get me wrong, Nintendo's first-party offerings have always been strong. It's always hard to deny that Nintendo software is almost always that of quality and lasting appeal. That said, Nintendo consoles can't survive on first-party titles alone. You should ask anybody trying to convince you differently how the current Nintendo console is performing sales-wise based on that idea. Also, if you're going to rely on first-party stuff, then go hard and start putting out more of it. And aside from releasing titles that you know will make a splash with the masses, you can't forget about your hardcore following and not release the titles that appease them. I'm still not happy with the fact that you didn't release a new Metroid title for the Nintendo 64 many years ago. And this is shortly after Super Metroid came out, and that's one of the greatest games ever made. And it just so happens to be my favorite Nintendo IP. I guess we won't be seeing Samus make her return on the Wii U either, will we, Nintendo? The console hasn't even seen a new proper Zelda game launch outside of the Wind Waker release, which is strange because if it's one franchise that's never skipped a Nintendo console, it's Zelda. One other thing that annoys me about Nintendo is how much they think their first-party games are worth. At the time of recording this, Mario Kart 8 is still $60 at most major retailers. Still. It launched 2 years ago. Now I understand not wanting to devalue your product, but I'm pretty sure time plays a bigger role in that depreciation than what you're willing to admit. Drop that price and move some units, darn it. And lastly, E3. Seriously, Nintendo has taken a strange approach to big trade shows like E3 in the last few years, and I'm unsure if it's done them any good. There's a lot of people who enjoy the new Nintendo Directs and the information that they provide, but things really need to be different this year. Nintendo needs to go nuclear this June or risk being drowned out by the other two. Let's not forget, there's a very good chance that they're going to be bringing new hardware to the event as well. Not to mention, Sony and Microsoft have had 2 electric E3s in a row, so you really need to bring the heat. You have to be on message. Nobody knew what the hell the Wii U was, and I'm willing to bet there are still some folks that confuse it with being a Wii peripheral. Get that cutesy stuff off stage, bring the Reginator back, and have some bite. Keep the name Wii from the stage. Seriously, don't say its name. unless you're talking backwards compatibility, which you should keep, by the way. Ask Sony how much they regret not having backwards compatibility right now, seeing Microsoft steal that thunder. Don't be that guy. So, there it is. I'm no expert, but hell, if you wanted an expert, Michael Pachter's channel is that away. You could try to change and improve, or you can keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting a different result. But that's none of my business.